about 8 o'clock in the morning, and he looked at his phone and he thought it was another Earl. So he said, oh, and he said, what happened? He said, Earl? Oh, Pastor. And he said, you don't know what happened. He said, what happened? On Maui, and if you were here 2 weeks ago, I pointed him out in service because he told me that morning that, I don't know why you called, but my business van on Maui was hit by an arsonist. And his business van is not just a van, it had all his tools to have him operate in his business. And he's a handyman and a humble handyman. And so the message that I gave that weekend was about Daniel's friends, right? Remember his friends? Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, right? They didn't bow down to the statue, right? Instead, they stood up and stood out for God, and God saved them from their fiery furnace, right? So I'm giving that message in that weekend. I didn't even think about the correlation with his van being burnt, but God didn't save his van. It burnt. But God saved him in his fiery furnace moment. And I want you to hear how God showed up and how God amazingly restored something. So you got to hear him. So I want you to welcome up Jonathan and Sarah Lauren as they share how God showed up in their fiery furnace moment. Now, Jonathan, I call you. You were just like in shock when I called you. And tell me about the circumstances surrounding that and what happened after that.
Yeah, so we started this business, actually my buddy and I, about 6-7 years ago. And about a year ago, we bought this van. And this is our main van. We have a team on Oahu and Kauai, but our main technician on Maui, I basically act as the project manager for this technician and send him out and do the work orders. So when we got the call, it took us a long time to, save money to put a down payment and everything on this van. But when I got the call, I was devastated because, we're like, okay, what do we do? We're gonna find other work somehow, or another truck or something. But I was like, okay, I'll just call the insurance company, because last year when I bought it, I told the insurance company, hey, just do whatever is required for the lien holder, and that normally includes comprehensive as well as bodily injury. So when we called, they said, hey, I'm sorry, you're not covered under arson. So neither were any of our tools in the van covered. So it was a total loss for us. Van was totaled, and that next morning when you called, we were absolutely trying to figure out what to do. Do we sell our car? Do we move, to keep the business going somehow? And somebody recommended to us that we talk to our homeowners insurance. And so, yeah, okay, we did. So when I called them, they sent me an email and said, hey, is this a personal loss or is this a business loss? And if this is a personal loss, we'll cover $35,000 of, anything. But if it's a business loss, we'll cover $200. So
$200, that doesn't even cover your gas, right?
So on that next Sunday when Earl gave that message, basically about not bowing down to idols, and we'll probably never bow down to a giant, golden image, maybe. But in my understanding, at that time, I was going to have that call the next Tuesday after that Sunday to explain to the insurance company whether this was personal or business. And God really impressed it on my heart to not bow down to in that moment, an idol of, comfort, security, money. And on that Tuesday, got the call, and God in his strength, I shared the truth. And right after that,
Wait. So you didn't take the $30,000?
Correct. Yes. So I felt like God wanted to be honest, and just give it to him. And so by his strength, I did. And immediately after that call, we got a flood, as well as on that Sunday, a flood of texts and calls for prayers and donations. And at this time now, we have all of our tools recovered. That's one haul of tools from all of you. The next day, somebody said, "Hey, I heard your story. I wanted to, sit down with you and just kind of hear what's going on and how, you're doing and stuff." And I said, "Yeah, no problem." So I sat down with him, and he said, "Well, my heart goes out to you. I have a van for you." So there's our new van. Yeah.
Well, it's not a passenger van, right?
Yeah, it's actually he was a contractor. I'm not going to share his name now, but it's got a tool rack and everything already in there. So we're going to put all our tools in that van and ship it to Maui to keep our business going and our lives going here. Yeah.
Wow. God showed up big time as you honored him, I mean, come on, guys, right? I don't know about you, but yeah, business, right? So easy just to say that and not even bat an eye, but you wanted to honor. Look what he did, beyond your imagination. Sarah, can you share just from your perspective as the wife? Because I know it wasn't just Jonathan. You're both involved in this business. Can you just share?
Yeah. Well, we just wanted to say thank you so much to the families out there who allowed the Lord to move on your hearts, to just be so generous with your resources, and that it's huge. It's inspired us to want to be that to other families in the future, even more so. And the fact that you did it without hesitation, out of the love that God's poured out into your hearts, is just it's really humbling. And I mean, it's a testimony to the fact, they will know us by our love for one another. And we've seen that so clearly in you guys, so thank you. Also, just in a time when it's a temptation to have our faith in humanity challenged, and even maybe our faith in God, it's tempted to feel like it's under fire. You just seeing that heart in you guys restored our faith in 100 times over, and just so blessed. About the day of the fire that happened, or the day after, I went on YouVersion, and there was a verse that came up, and it was James 1, and no matter how many times the reference goes straight out of my mind, but 2-3, and it says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance." And just, I wanted to say that to encourage anybody who may be going through a fiery trial, that in the midst of all of that, God has a good plan on the other side of it, and you guys were that good plan. So hang in there, hang on to your peace, and don't let the devil steal it, because whatever the enemy meant for evil, God turns for good 100 times over. So, yeah. It also keeps bringing to mind this sermon that Pastor Mark shared a while ago about stone soup. I don't know how many of you guys remember that sermon, that story, about how there was a famine in the land and around this village, and nobody had enough, very much food at all left at the end of it, and nobody really felt that they had anything to share. But there was this peddler that came through the village, and he kept going from house to house asking for food, and nobody was willing to share, so he started making the stone soup. And you guys probably know the rest of the story. I won't go into all the details, but the bottom line being that as the body of Christ, when we choose to trust God and put our resources out there because we know that He is our provider, it ends up being more than enough for everybody. And now we get to be that for other people too, with that faith moving forward. So thank you again.
Wow. Thank you, Jonathan and Sarah, for sharing and just showing how amazing God is as we honor Him, right, first, and trusting Him. So thanks again. Say thank you again for them sharing. We cannot outgive God, right? We can, as we trust Him, right? How can we ever pay Him back? We can never pay Him back, but we can pay it forward, Just being the kind of people that He's calling us to be, to share love in practical ways so that the world can see there's an amazing God working in and through us. So we have an opportunity to give, and we call this time worship. Like, what is worship? We just sang some songs, but it's an opportunity to give through the giving of our tithes and offerings. And we give with the attitude of just gratitude, right? Of what God has done. We can never give back enough, but this is one way that we get to honor the Lord with our finances. So we give.